Welcome back to another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. I'm very excited for today's guest. She is a new connection to me and is going to bring a ton of value to our listeners, especially if you are a small business owner and or maybe in sort of the spiritual realm of things. So please welcome to the podcast, Eugenia Oganova.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Stephanie. I'm so excited for this chat.
Yes, welcome. Let's dive right in because I want to learn so much about you. And just reading your bio, I know that we have some common threads as well, but take us through your origin story and let us into your journey. What led you into business ownership and then also helping women, scale their business to 6 or 7 figures?
Yeah, my story is kind of unusual. I do everything backwards in my life. I was born clairvoyant and conscious. So that meant that when most people kind of fall asleep and then have awakening later on, right? Like that's kind of normal story. I didn't have the awakening because I was awake from the beginning. So by the time I was 14 years old, I was already working with paying clients. I already had my business.
Wow.
So my journey kind of began really early. And one of my abilities is that I see timelines and possibilities for people, and I see what's their ultimate sort of timeline, what's their soul mission, like what they meant to do here. Not quite purpose, but I guess some people call it purpose. I kind of look at purpose more like something we create within the lifetime, but soul mission is more like what you meant to do. And to every life, we come in like with 2 suitcases. On one side, we got all our karma and issues and lessons and things like that to deal with and learn through. And on another side, we got all our amazing gifts and things that we're here to bring for humanity. So to me, I kind of always see the mix of these things in people. So when I was younger, I started talking about it. People started to come to me, and was a rocky beginning, just like any kid with unusual abilities. I was ostracized, I was bullied, like I had to go through my own phase of figuring out how to stand in my power. And in that process, I learned that if I leverage my uniqueness, if I see my sensitivity and abilities as an asset, not a liability, like everybody was saying, you're weird, there's something wrong with you and whatever. Instead, I kind of took it as like, no, this is actually my power and this is actually a good thing. And I'm here to do something with it. So instead of hiding it, I started sort of proclaiming it. And the more I did that, the more people came. So that's what my business was at the beginning. But then as it evolved, what ended up happening is a lot of my clients were business owners one way or another. And they were telling me things like, oh, thank you so much for helping me with my messaging. That helped tremendously in my previous campaign. Or thank you so much for the market positioning tip. I adjusted how I talk about my offer and now things work much better. And I'm like, I'm doing what? Market positioning, messaging? Like I didn't even know what those animals were. So I had to go and study business and study marketing and all these things to figure out how to translate better what I do to apply to business. The reason I wanted to apply it to business is because I always sort of made money through the thing I do. So to me, leveraging your unique magic and money kind of came hand in hand. I always thought that, well, of course, you're supposed to get paid for your gifts. Like, why wouldn't you? It was natural, common sense thing to me. But it was not for most people I talked to. So that became this passion in me, especially for women, is to help them make money and make good money doing the thing that they are here to do. So leverage their gifts and their unique power in order to actually create a business wrapped around that. So instead of having a job that they may be not happy with or doing something that's more like product based, they can essentially be who they were. And in doing so, bring in wealth. That's kind of how it evolved into more of a business. And then, of course, it went through iterations of, burnout and then figuring out a better business structure where I would not have to work 24/7 and hustle, but instead arrive at a different way of working. So as I figured that out for myself, I then started to help women that were working with me to translate their hustle businesses when they see, lots of people for one-off sessions and barely at 6 figures doing that and work like 6 days a week into something that's actually more spacious, something that is more soul aligned. So you can have, let's say, packages for $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000. And that means personal upgrade. That means a lot of elevating your frequency and who you are and how you see the value that you bring to the world. So that's kind of more of where I ended up, is still the same journey of figuring out what is your soul design, what is your soul mission, how you're building this lifetime, and what you meant to work with and what you meant to bring. But let's own the value of that. Let's figure out how to bring wealth through that. Let's leverage that unique, badass inner magic and actually bring it to the world in a way that gets you feeling like you're doing what you meant to do, and you're relaxed doing it. You're happy doing it. If you do it this way, then business is not hard. It's still, work is involved. Any business is work. I'm not going to tell you there's no work, but this is how you get to next level. Like if somebody is maybe at 40, 50,000, well, that's how you get to past, 100. If somebody's already at the 100 and you're feeling like you're at capacity, well, yeah, that's because hustle is not scalable. Like you can't work even harder to get further. Something needs to change. So I had to figure that out for my business. And in doing so, I ended up teaching so many, like hundreds of people now, how to do that for themselves.
Yes. Okay. I love this. I'm like writing down notes and questions. The first thing, like from the first little piece that you shared, was when you're, probably middle high school and realizing, oh my gosh, I have these gifts. How did you have the courage and the confidence to lean into them instead of away from them? Because I do feel like that is such a critical age too, where we're trying to fit in. And was that just like part of your upbringing, or was that like a natural intuition? Because I feel like some people will spend their entire life leaning away from their gifts because it makes them feel like they are not maybe included in society. So I'm just curious, like, what made you realize right away at such a young age that I actually need to lean into my gifts and not away from them?
I think that depends on what you're driven by. Most people are driven by fitting in, by being liked and things like that. Because I was born conscious, I've always been sort of driven by service. Like imagine if you're seeing how somebody is going to stumble if they do this thing, and you tell them and they ignore you and stumble, and then you're like, oh, why didn't you listen? So I kind of grow up with that feeling where I could prevent people suffering, prevent their maybe incorrect moves if they just paid attention to what I'm saying. So I always looked at it like, okay, I'm here to be of service to begin with, because why would, universe give me the gift? So then on top of that, it's like, how do I get better at delivering the message so they don't ignore me? And at first it backfired. I was definitely bullied and kind of ignored and seen as a really weird one. But, you can't hide this. So over time, people would kind of like in secret come to me and ask me questions and want advice, but in public would, like, I don't know her, like, would never be seen next to her. But in secret, they would be doing it. So it's like created this weird double life. And I think by the time I was 14, I just got like angry enough as a teenager to just stop caring about what other people think. Like that part lost and the service part won. So I just started talking. And my clients actually at first were grown-ups. They were not, people in school actually at all. They were grown-ups, like people in their 30s and 40s who tried to figure out their life, their career, their marriage, marital issues, direction in life, should they have a child or not, like much bigger concepts. Like I remember talking to some guy who told me that he killed somebody and now he's trying to figure out how to deal with the guilt. Like all sorts of things that I was kind of not really equipped to deal with, but at the same time, I sort of didn't have a choice. So I had to step up and be the authority so that they take me seriously, because I always respected the gift. And this is the same thing I teach my clients. Like if you got something in you that is magical, you got to respect that. You got to be more committed to that than your BS. And BS would be all the excuses and all the fears and what if they don't like me. Yeah, of course, all of this is there. Like I've always felt that too. But does that matter? It matters less than the other side. So that's kind of how that happened, is that I've trained myself from the early age to, because I care so much, to go more for the gift than my own personal issues, because it's not about you in the end of the day, right? We always think like, oh, but I have to, I don't know, look good on video, but I have to say right things in my marketing, but my class has to be like looking all very pretty. Like none of that matters. Deliver the thing. If you deliver that right, that's really what matters. Everything else is just fluff. And that's kind of what I had to internally adjust. And I think that people pleasing is like the biggest thing that stops entrepreneurs. especially women, from growing their businesses, because we're so perfectionistic. We're so trained to like do things right, and only then you're ready. And it's like such a BS. You're never ready. You
Yeah,
know, you
never.
gotta go for it and jump, and then either figure out that you have a parachute or discover your wings or something. But you gotta go for it, because if you
Yes.
don't, then you think that these excuses are real, but I have to be prepared, but I have to learn that. And you learn so much better how to do videos if you just go start doing videos. You do so much better, in the next workshop if you teach the first one.
Yeah.
you know this whole idea about, oh, how can I quote this price? Well, first of all, let's own it in your body, and then let's freaking go and quote the price. I mean, what will happen? You will die, they would judge you. Okay, well, you didn't die, you're still here, let's do it again. So that's
Yes.
kind of, that was always my thing, is I tend to do things in extremes. So when I was a teenager, it was like, well, would this kill me? Like, would they literally gang up and kill me if I say that? Well, maybe not. Let's just assume not. So let's say
Yeah.
it. And
Yes.
I remember one time in the class in school, the mean kids were saying something to another child, another person who's kind of more on the timid side, and I was like invisible at the time, and the teacher wasn't doing anything about it, and they just kind of were laughing at that person, and I was used to people laughing at me, and I know how much it hurt. So I decided to say something, and I kind of stood up for that person, and after that people noticed me. Like, it became oh, like, she has an opinion. And it just sort of broke the idea of like, oh, she's weird, she's invisible. Instead, it became like, oh, she's got opinions and she knows stuff, so maybe she's even dangerous. Kind of like that when I was a teenager.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, we have so much in common, because I do think that when you know that there's a deeper calling for your life, which everyone has, that there's this pull to like go for it, right? But not all of us respond to that, or we have those fears, and they're very real fears, but like you said, they're not biological, they are biological fears, but you're not actually going to die, right? Like, we've
Right.
had this conversation on the podcast before where it's like, well, what is the worst case scenario, right? And it's usually
Mhm.
not nearly anything as bad as it possibly could be. So I love just that reminder that we all have this soul purpose. So what advice would you give specifically to women too, that like are trying to figure out their soul purpose? Like, how do you actually find that?
Yeah, I don't think it's so much about soul purpose. As I said before, we kind of make our own purpose. I think it's more about uncovering your soul design. Because
Hmm.
when you say looking for a purpose, it implies you don't have one, and purpose is some
Yeah.
wild unicorn somewhere in the magical forest you gotta go and find. That's
Yeah.
already a BS story that just keeps people stuck. Instead, I would say, think of it like you got your soul design. Your soul design is those 2 suitcases I described. You got some lessons you gotta deal with. So some insecurities, some issues, that stuff. Then you got your gifts. And over time of living our life, we kind of like pile on top of that. That's conditioning and imprinting and family of origin stuff and whatever, pains that we went through as we were growing up. So step one would be figuring out what's you and what's not you. Am I doing this because that's what I'm expected to do? Is this what my parents wanted and I'm in rebellion to it? That's why I'm doing the opposite, but I don't actually even want that. So starting to figure out what is natural. That means listening to your body. That means listening to your actual desires. I always say, look for the deeper why. And unless you've gone 7 to 11 layers in, you don't know what your why is. So it's not like, well, I want to do my business because I want to make a lot of money. Well, okay, women don't really care about it. Let's go deeper. What's that? Well, because I really want to help people. Okay, what's underneath that? Well, it's this. Well, it's this. And if you do like 7 layers or 11 layers deep, you're going to find, because I want to prove my parents, or because I want to show off to my brother, or like all this crap that's buried in there. But if you keep going, at some point, you're going to hit the bottom. Now, that would be soul design piece. That would be like, oh, that's why I really want to do it. Like, because I want to bring something new to this world, and I know I have this unique something, or because I have this creative spark that I know can make people like excited or happy or alive, or heal their wounds or something, and I'm excited to merge with that spark and become more of that, or something like that. That's where it kind of gets more metaphysical, because if you dig that far, you went through all the layers. So that would be like step one. is to really figure out, who are you? Instead of looking for the purpose outside there somewhere, look for, assume it's already there because everybody has one, and then dig in and
Yeah.
clean up whatever got piled on top that you assume is you. Like a lot of the perfectionism and this and that, you can always go back like, well, why do I care about, I don't know, this video to be perfect? Well, because, and then if you go deep enough at some point, well, because my mother yelled at me if my homework didn't look pretty, or because I didn't clean up my room or something. And I only got love if I was, tidy, or whatever it is that, that you went through. But then what? Like,
Yeah.
are you actually that? Because, some people naturally kind of more tidy and proper and they like things organized. Great. Then make sure you're doing that, not out of, oh, it has to be perfect so I get love, but because it's one of my values is to have things very clean around. But not everybody's like that. Like, I'm sort of a creative type. So I have piles of books and papers and everything here. I just kind of like move it out of the camera view. But there's like a lot of creative chaos here, but I know what's where and I like it that way. But if, let's say, somebody would have told me like, well, that's not professional for a 7-figure business owner to have your office like that. I'm like, well, that works for me just fine.
Mhm.
So you got to figure out what's natural for you. And when you know your soul design, now you can build your life around that. That would be a kind of a better perspective than looking for a purpose.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great way to look at it. And the gifts and the lessons, right? Like really figuring out what is my story? What have I overcome already in this life that allows me to help other people in that way? And I think a lot of times that leads back to that deeper introspective work, right? Of like looking at your life as a journey and a story, and then pulling those pieces and those threads that make up part of who you are. So what would you say when you talked a little bit about burnout, right? Your hustle was not sustainable or scalable, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs reach that point in their business, and their business might be exploding. It might be super successful, but it's not giving them the rewards and the desires and the life that they really want, because they can't enjoy the time freedom, which I think is really what we're after, right? Like a lot of times it's not about the money necessarily. It's about the time wealth to be able to pull back and do the things that we want to do in this lifetime. So where were those points for you of hitting burnout? And then what did you do to overcome that?
Well, everything you said is kind of also part of my story as well. I built a business and I built it incorrectly as a structure, and I did not know it because I was so focused on service. I was doing one-off sessions. People kept coming. I kept adding more people because I really wanted to help. And at some point, I had over 700 clients. I worked 6 days a week, 12-hour days, and I
Wow.
made 186,000. So I was capped. I was booked for years ahead. Like literally my schedule there was no way to take new people. And the only way I could accommodate new clients was to teach classes. I would do workshops and events that evolved into, okay, let's travel all over the country and, even the world, and do events and bigger hotel rooms, because that was the other way to bring in new people because there was no more room in my regular schedule. Then that evolved into having an international tour company when I would take tours of people to different locations and we would do events at sacred sites and things like that. But every time I added more, I burned out because it's not actually humanly possible what I was trying to do. So at some point, I think it was my third burnout, where I had to get to the place of like, okay, I got to walk away from my business. This is insane. My company is doing amazingly. I'm like going up, and I'm going to have to walk away because I'm going to die if I don't. Like, I don't have me anymore. I had amazing clients, people I love so much. I was doing the thing that is my soul mission that I love doing, and I was not happy. I was actually kind of dying inside, and I had no more to give sort of from that place. I was going on empty instead of overflow. So
Right.
I realized I had to change. And that's where I had to be brave and follow my inner calling and knowing and whatever you call it, intuition, where I essentially stopped. I closed my travel company. I stopped traveling around the world and teaching. And I stopped doing one-off sessions. I instead took some time to kind of rebuild, reset. I wrote another book. I have 4 books written. So I did another one. And then within that period, I realized I have to honor my gift to the level that I actually deliver it. And instead of working with everybody, I need to refocus on working with leaders who then affect their own communities. So in doing that, I went into higher ticket market. I started to learn more about it and then utilize that. So I think I made like 123,000 in 3 months or something like that, because I was so determined to figure this part out. And I was like, okay, I just worked like 2% of what I used to work, and I
Mhm.
made almost what I would make in a year. So that
Wow.
was like, okay, I was on the right path. And
Yep.
that's where I readjusted my business into having higher ticket offers that go much deeper with the clients, that have a longer duration. And when I did that, not only that my clients had amazing results and then could, help their communities, that's where I could make more money, because now that was scalable and I
Yeah.
had the space in which I could offer more. So now I was an overflow, which is, how now I teach other people how to do that process, because I had to learn that. So that's where, to me, like, burnout is when you structure your business not in alignment with your soul design, because everybody's soul design is different. Some people require a lot of space. Some people are more active types, like they just need to be doing stuff all the time. Some people are more like bursts, like I'm more of that creative, active burst type. Like I can run a sprint, but not a marathon. So I
Hmm.
would work like crazy for a week or two for something, like create something, and then I need to kind of like chill for a bit. So I
Hmm.
scheduled my life in a way that I work just 1 or 2 days a week. The rest of the time I kind of more relaxed, and then a couple times a year I have my bigger bursts when I do a lunch or something, and then the rest of the time again I kind of chill. And I'm making a lot of money doing that, and I'm having much better lifestyle because it matches me. When I was trying to do before, it was more like one foot in front of the other, every day the same schedule, and just work, 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 which would be maybe great and feels like safety for somebody else, but it was killing me. And then
Yeah.
there's, of course, soul designs that require more like lots of space, and then when they feel inspired to do something, well, as long as you pair that with good work ethic and actually do it, then the rest is just okay. Now you'd have to learn some automations, you have to learn some other things, or hire a team, but you can still apply that onto a business. It's just we have to honor who we are. And if we arrange the business to our soul design, then there is no burnout. Then it actually kind of feels normal. Like I don't feel like I'm marketing, I don't feel like I'm selling, I just kind of being me and talking.
Mhm.
And that's where I know it's aligned. And I know the same thing for my clients, like when they say like, oh my God, I had a sales call and I didn't even feel like it was a sales call, it was just a chat and a sign up. Or I just did this lunch and it just felt like I was talking with my people. It was great, and people sign up. It's like, yep, that's when you aligned it correctly. But if it
Yeah.
feels like struggle, like friction, like you're pushing this boulder up a mountain, then your business is just not aligned to your soul design.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to do that introspective work and take the time out of your business to, look at your business and your desires from a much higher level to really see if it is truly working to fit that lifestyle that you want. I'm guessing at some point too, you realize that I can't do this all alone. Was there a point in your business where you started to delegate or maybe hire or like build a team around you to support you?
Yes and no. There was a point when I realized that obviously I need to have some systems in place. But this is also where I think soul design comes in. Some people play well with others and they like that support of a team. Some people don't. I happen to be in that category. So I do everything with automations. I literally run my 7-figure empire without having a team. It's all automation. But I'm good with tech stuff. So because of it, I can set up all sorts of back-end operations, and my business structured very well. So then I hire somebody to maybe help me with some tech stuff set up. But
Sure.
then that's a different way, let's say, than somebody who has a team that they like to have team meetings and kind of collaborate.
Mhm.
And there's this prevalent idea that there's one right way to do solopreneurship,
Mhm.
and there isn't. You
Yeah.
kind of have to do it your own way. So there are plenty of people who literally would feel lonely if they're doing it by themselves. They need to have a team, and not just hired like VA here and there, but like actually people who are on staff, who are there all the time, with whom they collaborate and strategize and can talk things through and bounce the ideas. And that's very healthy. And ideally, you kind of hire them before you're fully ready, because that's what's going to help you go to the next level. And then there are people more introverted like me. I'm sort of extrovert for short periods of time, and then I
Yeah.
retreat to my introverted world. So I prefer to set up everything the way I like it, through communication through videos and emails, but then make these sequences on the back end. So this way, everything is organized. Like, it looks like I'm everywhere, or I'm emailing all the time, or I'm talking to everybody, but a lot of it is actually energetics of bringing in your frequency correctly into the automation and good marketing and messaging, so you don't sound like a machine. But if you know how to do that, then a lot of times you can actually do it this way without a team.
Yeah. Okay. I love this perspective because I do think it's so true. Like, there is not one way to scale or grow a business. Some people are work so much better without a team, but yeah, like you said, maybe you have a VA, or you hire someone freelance to help you build some of those back end things. Or maybe you do want a team and you want to bounce ideas off of them, or be able to delegate some of that responsibility. So I think just knowing yourself and knowing that one isn't better than the other, they're both valid, and they can both be very profitable and very sustainable business models when you build them correctly. So I love that. So tell us more. We've spoken a little bit about soul design, but what is it, and how does that lead to profitability and success for women in business?
Well, you can think of soul design as sort of the patterns that you bring, which would be the lessons you have to learn and the gifts, and also the way you meant to do it. So, like,
Mm.
as I was kind of mentioning here, like some more creative times, some are kind of like batching, like I'm a batcher. I like to like
Mm.
spend one day doing videos, let's say, and then don't do it for 2 weeks, versus
Yeah.
somebody else who might be more like drop, drop, drop. So they like to do a video a day, let's say, but that would kill me.
Yeah.
Whatever your natural way of interaction is. I'm a natural presenter. So because of it, I make sure that I put myself in places where I can present, like podcasts or, events, conferences. Like, that's what I do, because that's easy for me. But for somebody else, that might be like the hardest thing. And
Yeah.
that's not actually part of their design. They might be way better networker. They may be way better in one-on-one conversations and chatting with people,
Mhm.
and kind of, getting that camaraderie and friendship build. And that's how they build their business. Like, I cannot do that. That's like not part of my design at all. But for somebody else, that is like, oh my God, I can do this in my sleep. So
Yeah.
you need to figure out what is your natural way. Like, if you're a talker, then figure out how to bring that as a form of your marketing. If you're a writer, great, write. I happen to be both, so I use both of those pathways, but I'm not a small talker. So, like, I cannot do networking. That's like stresses my nervous system. So some people love Messenger and they chat back and forth, and this, I cannot think in Messenger. Like, I can't even function like that. So I would never do that part of marketing. The same thing with like social media. Some people love to be on social and tell them about like, oh, I'm walking here, or I've done this, or I just did that, like kind of like involving human beings in their audience, in their life. And other people are much more private. I'm pretty private. So I don't post anything that much about my life unless I have a lesson that I want to teach somebody. So there is no one right way. It's not like, you hear, oh, you have to like bare your soul on social media. No, you don't. I don't, and I make a lot of money, you know.
Yeah.
But if you want to, great, go for it, because that's obviously what's burning in your heart, and that's what's good for you.
Yeah.
You have to honor how you are built. You can use social media, you don't have to, but you also have to think of, if you're not using social media, what would be your way of getting yourself in front of correct audiences? Well, that means you have to then book yourself in a lot of events. You might have to travel and in person be somewhere. Are you willing to do that? Or social media suddenly looks a little bit better? Because really, there are a lot of times people just have issues on top of issues about something. And when we start
Yes.
looking at it, we kind of clean it up. Like, let's say, oh, I hate social media. Oh, I don't want to be posting all the time the stupid pictures. It's like, great, don't post stupid pictures. Post content that actually has a lot of value, where you write, let's say, once a week something really awesome, or make once a week really cool video. And then she goes, oh, that I can do. Great. So you don't hate social media. You just had an assumption that social media is this influencer, glamorous stuff you see. That's not what's going to get you paid. A lot of
Right.
times we think that being inspirational and posting all these pictures, that's what it looks like. No, that's what influencers do. And most of them have huge following and don't make any money from it. But
Mm-hmm.
my clients make a lot of money from very little audiences. That's because
Yeah.
if you put content out that actually has value, that's really what matters. And that you can do anywhere. What's the difference of putting it on your blog or putting it on a Facebook or on YouTube? Really none, only that the algorithm works for you now. So if you kind of start looking at it like, okay, what if I clean up all these layers of assumptions and find my natural way, find my design, find how I'm built, find how I want to do things. Like for me, one of my values is spaciousness. So it's very important for me to have white space, to have like space when there's no people. So I live in the woods and there's no people. I'm sort of by myself here. I mean, with my husband and my cat. And I like that. I like to go out into the world, may that be through internet or by, traveling, and then go back to my cocoon. And that's kind of how I arranged my life. But somebody else might love to be constantly in and going on events and interacting with people. And that social world is their life. Great. But be honest that that's what it is. And then accommodate that and turn that into a form of marketing that now works for your business instead of against you. So with this friction, like, I think I should do this, but I would always look at, is it something you actually need to do and you just have issues on it that need to be cleaned up? Or is it something you shouldn't be doing, but you think you should? Because
Yeah.
figuring that out is very, very important. Like I gave you example with, let's say, social media or video or something like that. But like let's say if somebody says, well, my previous coach told me I'm supposed to do a group program because now I'm at the place where, I booked one-on-one and I need to do a group program. But I just hate doing groups. It just stresses me so much. And then I just so exhausted. So first thing I would look at is like, are you doing the group incorrectly? Because you shouldn't be exhausted doing it logically, right? So are you overgiving? Are you overextending? Do you maybe need a support coach? Like, what's the problem there? But if all of that is taken care of and the person still feels like they grinding themselves inside with the friction, I would say no, instead stay with the private one-on-ones and scale your business by charging more. If your program before was 5,000, now charge 15. It's still one-off. You're going to have the same number of clients. Your schedule isn't going to be any busier, but you're going to do it the way you love it, and you're still going to get paid the same as if you had the group program. So there are always ways around any way, any design, anything that you want to do. It's just wanting to do the work is required if you want to succeed in business. The only thing that cannot be worked with is when somebody says, well, I want to have this space, I want this and that, and it's kind of like they want passive income without having to do anything. And it's like, that's not possible. That's not how it works. If you actually want your business, you have to look for why. That's the 7 to 11 layers deep underneath that. What is it? And then when you find that something, that's the burning desire. That's your North Star that you go towards. Well, you have to be willing to work hard. You just shouldn't have to work hard all the time. Some moments, yes, you're going to work hard because you're going to have to push outside of your comfort zone. It's going to be scary. But if it's aligned, it's okay. And some other moments you might feel actually, wow, I have a lot of space and it's great and it's working. So it's like you're going to be willing to do the work and willing to talk to clients, willing to actually be there for people. If you are, then yes, there is no soul design that's like doesn't have prosperity or doesn't have space. It's not possible. Of course, whatever your design is, you naturally have this pre-installed. It's called profit potential in your soul design. So everybody has a profit potential. It's just figuring out how to be yourself as much as possible within your business is what unlocks your profit potential.
Yes. Okay. This is so good. So do you have a specific framework to help people find their soul design? Or are there certain types of soul design, or is it really just unique to you and getting to know yourself?
Well, yes, and yes, but this is all too long of a conversation. So to kind of shorten that, I have a methodology with how I work with a business owner to help her grow her business. But if we're talking about just the soul design piece of that, that would be the easiest way to know is tune into how you imagine you want your life to be. And then like imagine her in all the directions, not just like, oh, she has more money, but like, what does her life look like? When does she get up? What does she wear? Who's she talking to? What kind of clients she has? Color of her hair, did she change her haircut? Like what kind of underwear she wears? Like, does she still drink coffee or wine or whatever? Like the whole thing. And then overlay that on yourself and notice what is the discrepancy. It's like, oh, she's more relaxed and I'm like all tense, or she leans back and I'm like this forward all the time, like ready to pounce at something. And maybe she like walks around like a queen. She still gets stuff done, but she kind of like not in a hurry. And maybe you're always in a hurry. Like look for these teeny little things that are not big, like, oh, she makes more money, but what's her environment inside looks like. So the more you do that and the more self-mastery you have with yourself, that's kind of soul design part. But in my methodology, that's just step one. This is like what we do if they work with me, literally, we do it in one appointment because I just look at them and we can figure that out. But that's the process that then each person kind of has to unpack within themselves. And after that, we extract the soul expertise. That's the profit potential piece that I was just talking about. As in, out of all the amazingness of who you are and your awesomeness, what is like one or two things that actually meant to bring you wealth? Right? Because like I'm a very good knitter. I can make sweaters, I can make outfits, but that's not how I make money. Barely, like nobody knows about it, because even though it's one of my gifts, it's not the one that's in my profit potential. So we all have that. Like maybe your profit potential has to do with, let's say, you being nurturing and kind, and people within your field relax and they just feel like, oh God, I can rest finally when I'm around you. That might be your profit potential. And you might be discarding that as like, well, I don't know, I'm not doing anything, I'm just being me. Yeah, but that might be your profit potential. So we'll look for what that soul expertise is with the profit piece. Then we market position that, as in who is this for? And not from the kind of a mental figuring out the niche stuff like typical marketing, but from the energetics. Like you bringing a frequency. Let's tune into that frequency. And then let's look at who are the people who need that frequency. Because universe is a very efficient place. It will never give you a gift without also giving somebody who needs that gift at the same time. So these people do exist. You have to start from assumption that my ideal client, want to come in and pay me lots of money and who will benefit and have great results. They are in existence on the planet Earth now. And then we'll look for, okay, let's find the psychographics of these people, not the demographics like the traditional niche, the psychographics. Like let's paint the profile of that person more from the internal standpoint, from how their life is, how they feeling about everything, like that kind of piece. So now that we know the soul design, the soul expertise with the profit piece, now we also know how to market position that because we know who it's for. The next part is let's clean up your methodology. Most people don't even really know that they have one. They just kind of assume, well, I don't know, I just do something. I just do it. And depending on the person, I might do it differently or something like that. But in truth, we all have our own method. Like we do things certain way. And that's one of my specialties is I look at how somebody does it and I can kind of like see, oh, well, you're doing this and then you're doing this. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I do that with every person. I didn't even realize I have a method. So, there's ways to do that. And in my programs, I also have like questionnaires and stuff that they can go through to figure that out. So once you know your methodology, then we package that. That's what most people call an offer, like a program or something that you're selling. So from my perspective, you're not making an offer, which is what everybody like runs around with, like, oh, I need to design a program that's like worth, I don't know, 5,000 or 10,000. It's like, no, you don't need to design a program. You need to figure out who you are, who is this for, and what's your method. Once you know that, all you're doing is you're packaging your method. That takes like one evening. That's very easy when you know this part. So once you package your method, then you expand your wealth container so you can, put a price tag on it that's worthy of what you just created. And then the entire messaging and marketing that goes after that is not based on the offer. It's not based on the program you're selling. You're never actually selling the program the way I teach my clients. Instead, what you're selling is the first part. You're selling your soul design, your soul expertise, who is this for, and the methodology. That's the part that you're talking about. That's the part that feels so natural because you're just talking about essentially, being yourself in the world. And people then come to you and say, okay, how can I work with you? And you say, well, I have this container. This is like how I packaged my methodology. And that's how you get clients to come to you instead of you having to go chase after them. So that's how I work with people, is we figure out the energetics, we figure out the internal dynamics, and then we put really solid business and marketing strategy on that, and then figure out what would be a way that fits into your design to put it out into the world. Like some people like to live lunch. Some people like to kind of do it nonchalant behind the scenes. Some people more email kind of people. Some people do it through Messenger. And I mean, there's many different ways, and I know them all. So I teach what this person needs versus like, oh, there's 200 ways and you have to do it this way. Because
Right.
my goal is to help my clients be more themselves, not to be a copy of me. I happen to be,
Exactly.
from 30 years doing this, a library of pretty much every strategy that there is. And most proven business strategies and marketing strategies, they actually do work, but they work different for different people. And you got to know
Right.
who you are to know which one's actually right for you, instead of just going with, well, this coach says I should do this. Well, yeah, and that might be great and it works for that coach and some other people, but might not work for you, not because there's something wrong with you, but because it's just not fitting you. So then we need to find what actually fits you. And as I said, I've never found somebody that nothing fits. There's always some marketing and messaging strategy that could fit you. You just have to, be willing to experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And just like you said, be willing to experiment and know that maybe you need to figure out what doesn't work in order to figure out what does work for you, but you won't know until you try different things. So, probably a little bit of trial and error, and then doing that introspection after the fact and figuring out, what parts of that did I not enjoy and that I don't want to do again, and how could this look differently, and how could I continue to find alignment, and I think just that sense of ease and flow that we're looking for in our business in a way that's still going to bring me the outcomes and the rewards and the experiences that I'm going after.
Yeah,
So
and that's kind of a traditional pathway. And with me, we shortcut that. Like in 4 months, we get all of that done, and you're out there already at a different income level. So that's
yeah,
kind of where I come in, is taking everything you said, and instead of like years of going in circles and trial
right.
and error and all that, you come to me and we just like shortcut that timeline straight into, okay, now I know who I am, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, how I'm going to be talking about it, and I'm doing it, and I'm signing clients.
Yeah. So really just trying to, take what could be years of struggle and I think that's the benefit of a coach, right? And a mentor is we want to shorten and lessen the negative experiences, which some of those we have to go through ourselves, right? Those might be part of our lessons to learn. But eventually, like, we want to be able to, yes, put ourselves out there, our message into the world in a way where we can overcome some of the struggles that maybe would be in store for us if we didn't have someone there to help us, guide us, pull out the things about us that would help us get to our goals faster. So how do we really, I think a lot of it really comes down to mindset too, and like how we approach this and the energy, right? The energetic. So how do we upgrade our mindset and our energy to really match that next level or higher version of ourselves that we're going for?
Well, the big thing would be figuring out why you're doing this, because that reason must not be selfish. It has to be selfish enough, but not completely selfish. So
Mm,
when people say like, well, and also cannot be from the negative either. So like when people say, I don't want to struggle anymore, that's not what we're talking about. Or I don't want to have like clients who don't have results, or I'm so tired of this. I want this different. None of those things are what we're asking here. We need to look for, from the positive, what is it that you actually want, which is where a lot of personal work comes in. Let's say you want to have your business scale to, let's say, 250,000 a year. Great. Why do you want that? Because what? You then have bigger impact, because then you get to hire a team, so you get support, because then you get to finally put out this program that you wanted onto the bigger audience. Like looking for how is it for you and for them, that combination. And then working with your wealth container. That is our capacity to hold our own value and wealth. because wealth is not for us. I mean, at some point, yes, you pay the bills, you pay mortgage, you pay whatever, but what happens when it's all done? Like, I don't have any debt. I own everything I have. It's like, then money is not for you anymore. You're now a conduit for wealth that then goes into projects that help humanity. So imagine if you had extra couple of $1 million that could help clean up something in the ocean, or preserve Amazon forest, or help, build some infrastructure somewhere in a poor neighborhood, maybe in your own town or something. When you start thinking of it from that perspective, like, oh, okay, you're just thinking too small. So in order to own that, you have to start thinking of yourself as like, okay, am I going to elevate myself to the level of, I'm not just surviving here? Like, how do I make this business work, and this, this bill, and this client, how do I sign next 10 clients? But what is it all for? Like, why do you want 10 clients besides the money? And what happens when it's 100 clients? So when you start looking from that angle, that's where you really begin to look at yourself as valuable, because you are the only one with this unique perspective. You are the one-time cosmic event. There will never be another you. Your soul will reincarnate into another body and make a different you, but the you that exists now, which is a combination of your spiritual side and your genetics, upbringing, and everything here, that only exists one time. And you got to honor that and figure out, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to live as that, or do you want to keep fighting conditioning and imprinting from your childhood and some trauma that happened? I mean, we all have trauma, mind you. So I'm not like somehow dismissing this. Like, yeah, we all have fears. We all have trauma. Like, I used to throw up before going on stage every freaking time because my body would just lose it. Like, I get that. But that doesn't mean you stop. It means you look for, who am I and what is the level that I choose to operate on? You elevate who you are based on the value you choose to hold. And by doing that, you can receive more. That's what expands your wealth container.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So a little bit about you personally. What, at this time in your life and at this, I don't want to say level, but like obviously you've overcome a lot of things to get to where you are, and learned a lot about yourself and what you want and your soul purpose and design. So what is your biggest joy in life currently? What is bringing you joy and what you do today?
Well, two things. My kitty brings me lots of joy. I love my cat. And if we're talking about action, I love seeing the light bulbs go off in my clients. To me, this is like, I mean, I've seen so many people that went through my business over the years. It's just, that's always been almost like an orgasmic moment for me when I say something and a person goes, oh my God, I finally, wow, I got this. And it's like, I just help them like shortcut maybe lifetimes. And I can't take really credit for that because it's a co-creation. But when that happens, it's like an incredible feeling to witness that. I love that. That's one of my most favorite things.
Yeah, it is one of the best feelings for sure. So what is next for you? Like, what is next? Whether life or business, what are you looking forward to?
Well, my book is coming out. This is my fourth book. So the other ones were national bestsellers. This one I'm hoping to be will be international.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. It's called Wealth by Soul Design. And this is the book that explains this methodology I was just kind of laying out for you in a short
Cool.
version, that talks more about how to actually apply it so you can follow through some of the templates and questionnaires and assessments within the book and actually start building that before maybe choosing to work with me. So if you choose to or not, at least you can have a map and something you can literally apply. So Wealth by Soul Design, by the time this episode comes out, it probably will be already out. You can get that on my website, which is eugeniaoganova.com, or on Amazon and stores where the stuff available. And that's what's kind of next for me. That book has been a big push in my life going forward, and what I'm trying to create and how I want to impact the world is that to bring this information out for women so that they can leverage their unique badass inner magic and actually get to multi 6 figures or even 7 figures with space, with ease, without that friction we were talking about, by aligning to their unique soul design.
Oh, well, I hope that our listeners go grab that book and just start applying all of the things that you've been sharing today. I know I'm excited to read it and dig into it myself. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you most proud of about yourself?
That I did it my way, because I've had so many people telling me how I should be. And being clairvoyant, being neurodivergent, being just not a typical human being, I've always kind of had my own way. And it would have been so easy to just say, well, my way must be wrong because nobody else is doing it this way. But every time I try to do it somebody else's way, it didn't work. So over the years, I've learned to just stick to, I don't care how weird it looks, how unusual, how maybe nobody understands why I'm doing it this way, but I'm doing it this way because that's what works. So that's, I think, is like personally, it's the biggest accomplishment is to stop listening to other people's opinions.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is why you are uniquely positioned to help other people figure out their way based on
Right.
their soul design, because that has been probably one of your biggest lessons in this
Yes.
lifetime, is to just continue to follow your intuition and do it your way. So I love that. My final question is, what drives your soul today? What are you getting up for each morning?
Creative expression. I love to create content. I love to talk to my clients. I love to impact the world somehow. So creative expression is sort of what I wake up with. It's I don't wake up thinking like, oh shit, I need to do this. I need to do like my to-do list. To-do list is
Mm.
always there, yes, of course. But what drives me is like how can I bring value in, but creatively, like from this angle or that? Like I always have ideas, I always have something that's happening, but I don't go all over the place just trying to, land every idea. But I sort of have a method how I, make all of that not so crazy, but that it comes out through something, either through email or a video or a call to a client or something. But that creative new angle at looking at something, like that's what always, if somebody's looking at things this way and then I come in and I look from a different angle and they suddenly having a total breakthrough because they didn't even know that other angle existed. So for me, finding these other angles is sort of what I find extremely fun.
Yeah, and you never run out of new perspectives, right?
Right.
And new ideas and ways to implement them and share them in a new way. So
Yeah.
I will agree. I think that's really the unlimited potential that we can look forward to every next day. What could, you just never know what could happen, and what new things you're going to learn and implement. So, well, this has been a very soul inspired conversation. I appreciate you sharing your gifts with us today. Where can our listeners continue to connect with you after this episode?
Two places. So one is if you go onto a soulstrategywebinar.com, you're going to get a free training, which is my gift to you, that describes a lot of these pieces where you get me literally explaining it, showing some work of my clients, showing how it worked for them. So you can maybe see yourself in their examples and start to kind of recognize how this could be applied to you, like what I mean by soul expertise, what I mean, like how this could create, let's say, a different process for you in your business. So that's how coaches get to sustainable 10,000 per month and more, how they sell offers of 5,000 and 10,000 and 15,000. Like this is what I do with my clients. So that training is just going to lay it all out for you. Soulstrategywebinar.com. And the other is if you go onto my website, eugeniaoganova.com, that's where on the very top on the homepage, you'll see my new book coming out. That location, if you purchase it there, you're going to have lots of bonuses that you don't get by getting it on Amazon, because you're getting it through me, you get lots of goodies. So, and you can always find me anywhere on social. My handle is my name, Eugenia Oganova. So at Eugenia Oganova anywhere, LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. I also have a Facebook business group. So, if you're in my world there on my website, you'll see the link, High Ticket Clients Energetics for Spiritual Coaches. So you can join and hang out with us and learn more.
Thank you so much. And until next time, keep following what drives your soul.